don't come to Christmas this year. We want a peaceful holiday without drama. That was the message my mother sent me 5 years in a row. Every December, while families decorated trees, exchanged gifts, and took photos together, I stared at the same a reminder that I was no longer welcome in the place where I grew up. The first time it happened, I thought it was a misunderstanding. The fifth time, I realized it was a decision. My name is Madeline Harper. I'm 34 years old, and I work as an architectural designer specializing in historic homes and restoration projects. I know how to look at old buildings and see things most people miss. Cracks hidden beneath fresh paint. Weak foundations covered by beautiful decorations. Stories buried inside walls that have been standing for generations. Funny enough, I became very good at that because of my grandmother. She was the person who taught me that every home has a history. Every room has a memory. And every family has secrets they don't want uncovered. I grew up in a small town outside Portland, Oregon, in a house that my grandmother called the heart of our family. It was an old farmhouse sitting on several acres of land. The floors creaked, the windows were uneven, and the kitchen cabinets were older than I was. But to me, it was the most beautiful place in the world. That farmhouse was where my grandmother taught me how to bake, where she showed me old photographs from before I was born, where she told me stories about our family that nobody else seemed interested in hearing. My older brother Ryan never cared about those things. To him, the farmhouse was just an old property that needed too much work. My parents felt the same way. They always saw things differently from my grandmother and me. They cared about appearances. They cared about what people thought. And they cared a lot about my brother. Ryan was always the one everyone praised. He was confident, outgoing, and knew exactly how to make people like him. I was different. I was quiet. I spent most of my childhood reading books, drawing house designs, and following my grandmother around while she repaired furniture. My parents often said I was too sensitive, too emotional, too attached to the past. They never understood that the things they considered weaknesses became the skills that shaped my entire life. After college, I moved away and started working in architecture. I built a career slowly. I didn't become famous. I didn't make millions. I simply became good at what I did. But my family never saw that. They saw that I rented an apartment. They saw that I drove an older car. They saw that I wasn't posting expensive vacations online. And they made their own conclusions. My brother Ryan, meanwhile, bought a large house with his wife Claire. Suddenly, every family conversation became about Ryan. His renovations, his achievements, his plans. My mother loved saying things like Ryan has always known how to build a future. I always wondered if she realized what those words implied. Because every time she praised him, she reminded me that she didn't see me the same way. But I never expected things to go as far as they did. The first Christmas after my grandmother passed away, everything changed. Before she died, she made me promise something. We were sitting together in the farmhouse kitchen, the same kitchen where she taught me recipes that had been passed down for generations. She held my hand and said, "Madeline, some people only see the value of things when money is attached. Don't let that change what this place means." I smiled. "Grandma, why are you saying this?" She looked toward the window overlooking the land. "Because your family doesn't always understand what matters." At the time, I thought she was just being thoughtful. I didn't know how important those words would become. A few months after her funeral, my mother called me. "Christmas is going to be different this year," she said. I was wrapping presents in my apartment. "What do you mean?" "We're keeping it smaller." "Okay, that's fine." She hesitated. Then she said something I still remember. Maybe it's better if you don't come. I stopped wrapping the gift in my hands. Mom, what? It's just easier. Easier for who? She didn't answer. Instead, she said, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I sat there silently. The person who raised me was asking me not to come home for Christmas. I waited for her to explain. She never did. The next day, I saw photos online. My parents, Ryan, Claire, everyone sitting around the farmhouse Christmas tree. The tree my grandmother decorated every year. The tree I helped decorate since I was a child. I wasn't angry at first. I was hurt. There is a difference. Anger makes you fight. Pain makes you question yourself. For months, I wondered if maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe I had been too distant. Maybe I should have called more. Maybe I should have tried harder. Then Christmas came again. And so did the message. Don't come this year. Ryan and Claire are hosting. The year after that, please respect our decision. The fourth year, we need peace during the holidays. And the fifth year, don't come. We only want real family here. That last message changed something inside me. Because I finally understood. They weren't asking for space. They were removing me. And the strangest part was that while they were trying to erase me from the family, they were making plans around something they believed belonged to them. The farmhouse. The property my grandmother loved. The place they thought they could control. What they didn't know was that I had spent years studying every document connected to that land. Not because I wanted to take anything from them. Because I wanted to protect what my grandmother spent her life preserving. But my family had no idea. They believed I was the daughter who walked away. They believed I was the one who didn't care. They were about to discover how wrong they were. And it started with one photo from Christmas morning. A photo my brother accidentally posted online. A photo that revealed something they never wanted me to see. The photo my brother posted looked innocent at first. It was just a Christmas picture. Ryan was standing beside the fireplace with Claire. My parents were sitting in their usual chairs, and everyone was smiling. But behind them was something that made my stomach drop. A handmade wooden sign. My grandmother's sign. The one she carved herself and placed above the fireplace decades earlier. It said, "The Harper family home, built with love, protected by memories." I stared at that picture for several minutes. Not because I was upset they were celebrating without me. I had already accepted that. What bothered me was something else. In the corner of the photo, I noticed a folder sitting on the table. A blue folder. The same kind of folder my father used whenever he handled important documents. I zoomed in. The folder had a label. Property transfer. My heart started beating faster. Because I knew exactly what that meant. They weren't just gathering for Christmas. They were making plans. Plans involving my grandmother's farmhouse. I immediately called my mother. She answered after several rings. "Madeline?" Her voice sounded annoyed. Not surprised. Like she already knew why I was calling. "Mom, what is happening with the farmhouse?" There was silence. Then she sighed.
Say what up, why does it matter to you?
That question hurt more than I expected.
Because Grandma spent her entire life protecting that place.
Oh, you're Madeline. I froze. You said it so casually. Like my grandmother's wishes disappeared the moment she did. That doesn't mean everything she cared about disappears.
My mother lowered her voice.
Ryan has been helping us. He's the only one who understands responsibility.
I closed my eyes. There it was again. The comparison. Ryan was responsible. Ryan was dependable. Ryan was the one they trusted. What does that mean? It means the property needs someone who can manage it. And you think that's Ryan? He's family. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was painful. For 5 years they told me I wasn't part of the family. But now they were using that word when they needed something. Mom, did Grandma leave instructions about the property? Another silence. A longer one. Then she said, don't involve yourself in things you don't understand. And she hung up. That was the moment I stopped hoping they would suddenly realize what they were doing. I had spent years waiting for an apology. Waiting for someone to say, "We miss you. We were wrong. Come home." But instead, they kept pushing me further away. So I made a decision. I was going to stop asking for a place at their table. I was going to protect the person who had always made space for me. My grandmother. The next morning, I contacted my old mentor, Evelyn Carter. Evelyn had been the person who encouraged me to study historic preservation. She was one of the most respected consultants in my field. When I told her about the farmhouse, she listened carefully. Then she asked, "Nirwana, have you ever seen the complete property records?" "No. I only know what my family told me." She paused. That's the first mistake people make with old properties. They believe family stories instead of documents. Her words stayed with me. So I started researching. I pulled public records. I reviewed county documents. I studied property histories. And after several weeks, I found something strange. The farmhouse wasn't just a family home. The land had historical value. Years earlier, my grandmother had applied for a preservation review because she wanted the property protected from careless development. She had spent years maintaining it. And she had filed documents explaining exactly what she wanted to happen after her death. But there was one problem. The documents were incomplete in the public records. A key page was missing. The page that explained her final wishes. I felt a chill. Because missing documents don't disappear by accident. While I was searching, my family continued acting like nothing was wrong. Then came the first public insult. A few weeks later, my cousin invited me to a small family dinner. I almost didn't go. But I decided I deserved to show up. I deserved to exist. When I arrived, everyone became quiet. My brother looked surprised. "Madeline, I thought you understood you weren't coming around anymore." The room went silent. I looked at him. "That was never your decision to make." Ryan smiled. "You always make things dramatic." My mother stepped in. "Let's not ruin dinner." I looked around the table. The same people who ignored me for years were now acting like I was the problem. Then Claire laughed softly. "You know, Ryan was saying the farmhouse will finally be in good hands soon." I looked at her. "What does that mean?" She smiled. "Everyone knows Ryan deserves it." I felt my hands tighten under the table. "Deserves what?" Claire looked confused. "The property." My brother leaned back. "Mom and Dad are planning to transfer everything to us." I stared at my parents. They didn't deny it. That silence told me everything. My father finally spoke. "Ryan has built a stable life. You don't even live here anymore." I nodded slowly. "So because I moved away, you think I stopped caring?" Nobody answered. Then Ryan said something I will never forget. "Madeline, you need to accept that some things belong to people who are actually involved." Everyone looked uncomfortable. But nobody defended me. Nobody said he was wrong. That night, I went home feeling the same pain I felt 5 years earlier. But something was different. Before, I felt rejected. Now I felt determined. Because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't fighting for a house. I was fighting for my grandmother's final decision. And the documents I found were only the beginning. The next betrayal came 2 weeks later. I received an email from my mother. No apology, no explanation. Just one sentence. We have decided to move forward with the property transfer. Please do not interfere. Attached was a document. A transfer agreement. My brother planned to become the official owner. But as I opened the file, I noticed something strange. The signature section was incomplete. And the date didn't match the timeline. Someone was rushing. Someone was trying to finish this before anyone looked too closely. That was when I knew. They weren't confident. They were afraid. And they had no idea that I had already discovered the truth hidden inside my grandmother's records. What they didn't know was that my grandmother had trusted me with something years ago. Something I never told anyone. A skill they always dismissed. A skill they laughed at. They thought my obsession with old documents and property research was a useless hobby. They didn't know it had become my greatest strength. And soon they were going to learn exactly what I had been quietly building. For most of my life, my family believed they knew exactly who I was. They thought I was the quiet daughter who stayed in the background. The one who wasn't confident enough. The one who would never challenge anyone. They saw my patience as weakness. They saw my kindness as surrender. But they never understood one thing. Silence does not mean someone has nothing to say. Sometimes silence means someone is gathering the truth. And I had spent years learning how to uncover things people tried to hide. My family never respected my work in historic preservation. They thought studying old properties was just a hobby. My brother once laughed when I told him I could identify problems in a building just by studying its records. "That's great, Madeline," he said.
Maybe someday you can tell people why their old barns are falling apart.
I smiled. I didn't argue. Because what he didn't know was that my knowledge of property records, restoration laws, and historical documents had helped me become one of the best researchers in my company. And now, that same knowledge was helping me protect my grandmother's home. Line up, I decided to meet with someone who knew my grandmother better than anyone. Her longtime attorney, Thomas Bennett. He had handled my grandmother's legal affairs for more than 20 years. When I walked into his office, he looked at me with a sad expression. "Madeline, I was wondering when you would come." I sat down. "You knew something was happening?" He folded his hands. "I knew your family would eventually try." "Try what?" He opened a drawer and pulled out an old file. The farmhouse was never supposed to be transferred the way they're attempting. My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" He opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents I had never seen. My grandmother's handwriting. Her notes. Her signatures. Thomas looked at me. "Your grandmother knew there would be disagreements after she passed." I swallowed. "She knew." He nodded. "She knew Ryan and your parents saw the property as an asset. She saw it as a responsibility." I looked down at the documents. My grandmother had written about preserving the farmhouse, about protecting the land, about keeping it connected to the family members who respected its history. Then Thomas showed me the final page. A page my family apparently never mentioned. The page that had been missing from public records. My grandmother had named me as the person responsible for protecting the property. Not because I was her favorite. Not because she wanted to punish anyone. But because she trusted me. The woman my family ignored was the person my grandmother believed in. I felt tears in my eyes. Not because I wanted to win. Because after years of feeling unwanted, I finally had proof that someone had always seen my value. But before I could take action, my family made their biggest mistake. They announced the property transfer publicly. My mother posted online. excited to see our family home continue with Ryan and Claire. Some things are meant for the next generation. I read the comments. Friends? Neighbors? Family acquaintances? Everyone congratulated them. Nobody knew the truth. Then my cousin Rachel called me. She was always considered the outsider in our family because she questioned things. Madeline? Are you seeing this? Yes. Are you going to let them do this? I looked at the documents on my desk. No. Rachel became quiet. Then she said, I always knew Grandma trusted you for a reason. Rachel became the person who stood beside me during those final weeks. She helped me organize documents. She helped me contact officials. And most importantly, she reminded me that I wasn't fighting alone. The final confrontation happened during a family gathering at the farmhouse. My parents had invited relatives over because they wanted to celebrate Ryan officially taking control. They decorated the house. They prepared food. They even placed a large sign outside. Future Harper family residence. When I arrived, everyone turned. My mother immediately looked uncomfortable. Madeline? Why are you here? I looked at her calmly. Because this is still my family's home. Ryan stepped forward. We already talked about this. No, I said. You talked. You decided. You assumed. People around the room started whispering. My father crossed his arms. What exactly are you trying to prove? I looked at Thomas Bennett, who was standing near the door. The room became silent. My mother looked shocked. Why is he here? Thomas walked forward holding a folder. Because I represent the legal wishes of Eleanor Harper. My grandmother's name changed the entire room. Thomas opened the folder. Before her passing, Eleanor created specific instructions regarding this property. Ryan laughed nervously. That's impossible. Thomas looked at him. No. What's impossible is that you believed nobody would check. The room went quiet. Thomas continued. The transfer documents submitted by Ryan Harper were incomplete and did not reflect the property's legal restrictions. My mother's face changed. What restrictions? Thomas looked at everyone. The property cannot be transferred simply because someone wants ownership. It must follow Eleanor Harper's preservation agreement. Ryan stepped forward. So who controls it? Thomas turned toward me. Madeline Harper. Nobody spoke. For the first time in years, my family had nothing to say. My mother looked at me. You knew? I shook my head. I knew Grandma wanted this place protected. I didn't know everything until I searched for the truth. Ryan looked angry. You've been waiting for this. I looked at him. No. I've been waiting for you to stop treating me like I didn't matter. The room was completely silent. After that day, everything changed. The property was protected. The rushed transfer was stopped. My family had to face the consequences of their decisions. But the biggest change wasn't legal. It was personal. I stopped needing their approval. For years, I thought being rejected by my family meant I had lost something. But I eventually realized something important. I didn't lose my place in their family. They lost their connection to someone who truly cared. The farmhouse became a restored family property. A place where future generations could learn its history. And I kept my grandmother's promise. Not because I wanted revenge. Because love deserves protection. If your family ever pushed you away, ignored your voice, or made you feel like you didn't belong, I want you to know your story matters too. Share your experience in the comments. and tell us about the moment you chose to stand up for yourself. Subscribe to join this community of people who refuse to be forgotten. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Thank you for listening to my story. If it connected with you, please like the video and click hype so more people can find stories about courage, family, and standing up for yourself. Share where you're watching from and tell me your own experience. Your voice matters, and I'm grateful you're here.